Greetings, everyone. This is Rock and Roll Spot Connection with the Weekly Comic Book Roundup, and we're going to get started with this week's X-Men books and our one DC title for the week. Kicking things off, we've got New Mutants number 11. Where we left off, the New Mutants were attempting to help a recently manifested mutant in the Eastern European nation of Carnelia, a former Soviet state. And much like Russia, a state that is not a Krakoan treaty nation, and is in fact very heavily anti-mutant. Things got really bad, and a backup team had to be brought in, which included Mutant Liberation Front member Wildside. As the backup team went into the nightmare realm created by the young New Mutant. By the new young mutant. Yeah, here we go. The little nightmare dimension kind of, well, affected everyone, including Armor, who was basically keeping everyone safe inside her, well, armor. Inside, Armor saw her dead family calling for her. And that is where we pick up, with apparitions of Armor's brother and mother calling to her, and her reaching out. As everything goes to hell, Cypher manages to convince Mondo to take Wildside, basically, as well as a portion of Armor's armor. While outside, things are getting a bit tense with the government and as well as Mirage, Boom Boom, and Wolfsbane. And the Prime Minister of the country is, of course, using the fact that the mutants are there for propaganda purposes because, well, yeah. So, back into the Nightmare Dimension. Mondo grabs a chunk of Armor's armor, wraps around himself, and then goes out, then grabs Wildside. And basically, has him do his thing so that she she's no longer having nightmares, but rather good dreams. It works, which allows everyone to escape. Mirage tries to calm down the young mutant. Cosmar's her name. Though it doesn't really help that only Boom Boom speaks Russian. But, however, Boom Boom is a lot better at, is actually quite good at calming her down, explaining that things are okay, the new mutants are there to help, and they have people who can help Cosmar try to learn how to control her powers. However, the military's got the team surrounded. Most of the team decides, okay, well, guess we'll just have to fight our way out. However, Mirage countermands this and says, no, we're going to surrender. We're outnumbered. And, if we surrender, we'll regroup and figure a way out of this. However, before they can surrender, Magic arrives, explaining to the Carnelians that the mutants came to help the Carnelians in their time of need. And, well, now they're pointing weapons at them. So, And when the troops open fire, magic is able to deflect the bullets and then teleport everyone out. There's also a shot from the Doc's website. Carnelian carnage continues, naming off the various involved mutants and explaining that the Prime Minister has issued a warrant for the arrest of the transplanted mutants, but they have not complied. We also get comments such as, Mr. Right Now, why are we putting up with this? Yeah. The President needs to shut down Krakow and put these monsters in jail. Flytrap 87. How many names has Boomer had? Why'd she keep changing it? What's she trying to hide? Dave 405. Where the hell is Carnelia? Never heard of it. Smells like hoax. D&K Memes 9875. Follow me for the dankest memes. K-Rock 452675. Don't arrest them. Shoot them. Dubzilla. This is boring. Who cares about these nobodies? Where's Wolverine? Trask was right. This is disgusting. They say they are here to help, but this proves that they are all liars. They should have been in jail already. We need a president who will stand up for these thugs. Gee, these comment sections sound totally, unrealistic. Never seen comments like that anywhere online. Never. Anyway, back on Krakoa the next day. The New Mutants are healing up. Turns out there's an anesthetic that Healer doesn't recognize in the bloodstream of most of the New Mutants. It's in a low enough quantity to not be fatal, but they're going to need to rest and drink plenty of fluids. Boom Boom immediately offers up her stash of booze, but Healer says, no. Non-alcoholic fluids. Water and juice only for the next week. Healer then explains that the New Mutants will feel queasy for the next day or so, but the more food they take in, the better. He also says that by examining samples of their blood and the mystery anesthetic, they'll be able to get some insight into what makes Cosmar tick. And it seems that Cosmar's body produces the anesthetic when she falls asleep, as though her powers seek to keep her sleeping. Wildside is like, okay, hey, next time you guys need help, you know where to find me. Doug tries to talk to Armor, but she really just doesn't want to talk about what happened inside. We got an excerpt from Boom Boom's diary. Okay, so I guess I'm still doing a stupid thing. I swear, if you find this and I've started crimping pages or adding Stanford to a page to my vision board, please find me and put me out of my misery. Deal? Also, if you're reading this and I'm still alive, know that I will find out and I'll come end you. This welcome wagon for New Mutants, actual New Mutants, not Cap's New Mutants like our team, is not going as well as everyone hoped. So far, we have welcomed a brand new mutant to Krakoa. Her name is Cosmar, and she's basically like Freddy Krueger as a satellite. Her dreams trying to eat the world around her and drag people in. So yeah, I'm sure that'll come in useful on a pinch, right? Everyone knows that every good team has a leader, a powerhouse, a flyer, a psychic, and a nightmare machine, right? Where was I? Right, so we brought in Cosmar. Brought in all those kids from Nova Roma. Too many kids. No, I can remember their names. Brought in Beak, Angel, and their kids, but we lost Beak's parents. All those cartel members died, even if they had it coming. Security guards in Cornelia. Our average is not great. We need to figure out a way to be better about it. Stealthier. I don't know. Anywho, this whole thing is going to be bummed out. Thinking about going back down to Brazil, seeing if there are more of those mutant hunting monsters that need blowing up. Boom Boom needs to blow off a little steam. Later, Boom Boom. We then catch back up with Cosmar, as well as Manon, Maxime, and Mirage. Cosmar's being basically kept isolated, while Maxime and Manon basically try to keep her calm. And help her, things like if she it looks like she's having a nightmare. Use your powers to calm her down. Stuff like that. Then, as Mirage is leaving from after talking to Maxime and Menon, she runs into Magic, who asks if she and Cypher know about this website Docs, explaining that that's how Magic found them, and it's how the cartel found Glob and Armor in Nebraska. As the site had been reported appearances of Beacon Angel. And she goes on to explain that if the cartel had shown up, someone else in Nebraska, somebody else would have. And those aren't the only addresses exposed on the website. Dozens of mutants' home addresses have been posted. Most have moved out of fear. They're also monitoring movement at most of the gates, putting mutants at risk from those who decided to target us. Mirage asks if it's legal, and Cypher says, yeah, it is. Unless the info published is about someone who works for the government or the juror, witness, or informant, there's no law against it. Magic does comment there's no human law against it, maybe. But she's not going to stand by while some mouth-breathing, basement-dwelling blogger exposes mutants to harm. And Mirage is with her. Okay, basically saying, we've given the people that wanted. They set up their own society, yet not good enough. They need to do something. Glob said that he's been wanting to go after people from Docs ever since the Nebraska incident, and he's in. And he's got food. Because, well, the team needs to fuel up before they go and take on a bunch of mouthbreathers. And that is where the issue ends. Which then brings us to Wolverine number 3. Where we left off, Wolverine was tracking down a group called the Flower Cartel, who were basically turning Krakoan petals into a narcotic. So far, the apparent leader of the cartel, the Pale Lady, had managed to force Wolverine to, well, kill a few members of X-Force. Also looking for the Flower Cartel is a CIA agent by the name of Jeff Bannister. The rundown given in the issue is the Flower Cartel is responsible for the illegal theft and distribution of Krakoa's life-saving medicines on the black market. Using their psionic enforcer, known only as the Pale Girl, to control the minds of anyone in their way, they turned Wolverine against his teammates and left him catatonic in Alaska. Recovered by Bannister, the pair found they had a common enemy in the Flower Cartel and soon hatched a plan to find the organization. Stealing the Citadel of Medicine shipment as bait, Sue hunted the Flower Cartel until the Pale Girl turned Wolverine against Bannister. So the issue begins at the Green Lagoon on Krakoa, the previous day. Logan and Magneto are having drinks. And clearly they've had a lot because, well, Magneto ends up passing out. After saying that, basically offering something of an overture of friendship to Wolverine, which, in all honesty, good. Nice to see. It really is. And so, Logan finishes his drink and borrows Magneto's helmet, telling the bartender, Blob, that he didn't see a damn thing. Somewhere in the Pacific now, Wolverine and the company of the Pale Lady is reflecting on his the various lives he's led. Been a soldier in armies, a hermit with no concern about himself. But the thing that's always the same, no matter what kind of mess he's in, no matter what odd and broken bits of his brain remain, no matter where and when he finds himself, his gut instinct. And that's always been his true north, the compass he chases. Because someone who takes time and thinks stuff out and plans ahead is somebody who believes in a better future. He's never been that guy, but he's trying to be that guy now, which is why this time he had a plan. And of course, he wanted to stop the pedal hijackings and settle his score with the pale girl. But more than that, he wants to bring down the whole machine of the Flower Cartel. Flashback to Krakoa, where Logan is trying to recruit Quentin Quire to help him with his plan. And, well, let's just say Wolverine had to call in, let's just say, a favor from the Stepford Cuckoos, who just start laying it on super thick about how hot it is that Quentin's going after the Pale Girl. But as dangerous as she is, they would totally understand if he didn't go. But, well, yeah. Now, also, it turns out that, well, their interest is not in Quentin, but rather in Cable, and Wolverine has to help them with that in exchange for them helping him get Quentin on board. We then get an excerpt from Beast's logbook, Interference. Xavier's going to speak with me today about the possibility of psychic aberrations or technical malfunction with Cerebro. In Alaska, after the Pale Girl wrested control of Logan's mind and puppeted him into killing his teammates, the professor told me that he began a hunt of his own. I'll admit some jealousy at the sensation he must experience each time he places Cerebro over his head. I imagine the gentle quake that must run through his body, almost seismic as he expands, the whole world growing inside him. A mindscape he can travel to seek out each and every mutant. But here's what matters. When he searched for the one everyone calls the Pale Girl, he couldn't find her. She must derive her abilities from a different source, he concluded. But I'm not so certain of this, and now neither is he. Sometime later, just this morning in fact, as he discussed tariffs and trade deals with the Quiet Council, he paused mid-conversation, stood from his seat, and looked east. Because there was a flicker. He described it as a static hiss in the space between radio stations. It lasted only a moment, but it was enough to come rushing to the fore of his mind. His fellow council members asked what was wrong, and he said maybe nothing, or maybe something. For a moment, just a moment, he felt plugged into what wasn't there before. It reminded me of Jean, he told me, except other. It was then that Xavier realized something that worried him deeply, something he scolded himself for not recognizing sooner. That is why he came to me. Russia, as a whole, is unavailable to him, like a section of the sky that carries no stars. What did this mean? Has the country killed off all of its mutants? Or there's then a transcript of inter-office conversation in the CIA between Jeff Bannister and Dolores Ramirez. Ramirez works the X desk, and explaining that the X desk is especially tasked to keep an eye on mutants. And normally Ramirez would say it's a good thing, except that, well, she's left Bannister several emails and voicemails. Though Bannister explains that not getting into going into dirty details, but he's chasing something right now, something big, and it's become clear someone's watching. So he's going old school. No computers, no phones. Though he was about to order pizza when he got the call, and Bannister explained that's approach to one exception is, ordering pizza. Ramirez offers the X-Desk assistance, which Bannister refuses but thanks her for. She explains, though, that they understand that Bannister's formed something of a partnership with Wolverine. Ramirez is trying to get more information from Bannister, but he's not as forthcoming. And yeah, Bannister's not having it. Tells her to piss off, and then he's going to order an extra large pie stacked with ham and pineapple, and hangs up. Apparently the call lasted a whole 54 seconds. Back in the present, the hijacked boat arrives at a rather massive sea base, rather massive Russian sea base. Wolverine states that where they're docking is massive, has a geography of its own, but like to share the zip code with Moscow. Further going that the Russians have built their own island, their own Krakoa. Logan goes on to add that he hears things secondhand from the Quiet Council through Jean. Everyone seems to think the non-cheating nations are fencing themselves off, but Russia's been doing the opposite. However, they're in for a surprise if they think they're going to make away with a payload of Krakoan petals. In the hold, waiting for them, are Wolverine and 4 of the Marauders: Storm, Bishop, Iceman, and Pyro. Wolverine explains his plan, and initially Quentin is still hesitant as he doesn't want to hide in the hold. Because, well, he would rather not travel steerage class. But Logan has other plans for Quentin. Turns out that Logan's plan for Quentin was for Quentin to basically replace Logan on the bridge of the ship. Quentin goes into all the skill, everything he had to do. First, he had to neurally harness all of Wolverine's broken, foul mind, which is equivalent to an archaeologist wading through a century of bathroom stall graffiti. Then he had to reconstruct and project a phantom version of his psyche and body for Pale Girl to mess with. He's actually rather pleased with himself for having, played the Pale Girl. Beat her at her own game of mental chess. Going on to say he's basically just won the Oscar, Nobel, and Pulitzer, executing a triple backflip, summoning Everest, and writing a Petrarchan sonnet about the second law of thermodynamics. And the Pale Girl just has Bannister, who's under her thrall, not choir out, while Wolverine and the Marauders take on the Petal Cartel, or the Flower Cartel. Wolverine and Bishop handle the cartel members. Also, it should be noted that during all of this, Wolverine is wearing Magneto's helmet, which makes him immune to psychic attacks. However, the Pale Girl has one last surprise for him. She's going to get away while controlling Bannister to have him hold his gun to his own head. Wolverine swipes the weapon. The Pale Girl does escape, and we find out just how large this aquatic base of the Flower Cartels was. As it travels deeper into the sea as the top portion is sunk. We then get another excerpt from Beast's logbook, The Problem with Russia. From the very beginning, Xavier predicted that Russia would reject mutant sovereignty. Because of this, he asked Colossus, Peter Nikolaevich Rasputin, to quietly gather any mutant citizens who wished to escape and ready them for extraction. A whisper network revealed their plan, and military forces set upon them. Those who escaped barely survived. Since then, little is known about Russia. The non-treaty nation is in a state of exile. But instead of turning inward, it appears to have been quietly expanding its influence, economically, politically, militarily. There's something particularly disconcerting about one, the standardized uniform of the troops on board this vessel, and two, the Soviet emblem, with its traditional sickle and hammer now offset by an X instead of a star. Though this is conjecture, it may imply a rival mutant society. The Flower Cartel, it is now clear, is not simply a criminal organization, but a government-sponsored organization that has been interrupting mutant trade routes and processing the petals into pollen for global distribution. This is not only an economic boon, it is an effort at destabilization. They are undermining the new geopolitical reality by turning the mutants' olive branch, petals, into a diseased crop. Their goal appears to be profiteering addiction, but within Russia's borders, pollen is being used as propaganda. Recently, a branch of the Order of X, a mutant worshipping cult, died as a result of a bad batch of pollen, and is now more widely believed this was intentionally meant to inspire fearfulness and distrust of the Krakoan source material. At this juncture, I have requested to sit down with Colossus and Omega Red for both a debriefing on everything they know about their mother country and the possibility of joining a special task force. Later on, turns out Wolverine pulled some strings and got Bannister's daughter off the waiting list. And she's doing fine. And so, Wolverine's enjoying a few beers with Bannister. And, you know, talk about the kind of guys they are. And Bannister says that the guy he believes in, or the guy standing in front of him, that's the Logan that Bannister believes in. And the three are about to go get pizza when Sage contacts Wolverine as the Quiet Council is demanding Wolverine's presence immediately. As something about Wolverine having gone rogue and Magneto's helmet. And it turns out that Logan has planted a gate, or has left a Krakoan gate, for Bannister. And presumably used it himself. And that is where the issue ends. Which then brings us to Hellions, number 2. Where we left off in Hellions number 1, back in the before times, Mr. Sinister advocated for a group of troubled mutants to be used as a team. With Quenon, Psylocke, being basically the liaison between Sinister and the team. The team consisting of Havoc, Scalp Hunter, Wild Child, Nanny and Orphan Maker, and Empath of the original Hellions. Their first mission is to go to basically destroy Sinister's old genetics lab in the orphanage that he ran in Nebraska decades ago. The same orphanage that Havoc and Cyclops were briefly raised in. The issue opens with a quote from Nightcrawler. Those whose violence you do not understand have often seen horrors you cannot imagine. So the Hellions arrive in Nebraska. Local cops are not too happy about about the mutants coming in to take care of this. They have a canine unit present, and Wild Child attacks the handler of the canine. Though Grey Crow does stop him, with Psylocke explaining that Wild Child is sensitive to lupine pack dynamics, and the dog was a mistake. When they enter, yeah, it's not a pretty sight, and with Grey Crow describing the place as a hellhole, and Havoc basically saying that Grey Crow has no idea. Nanny opines that the pleading cries of children went unanswered there, and she then starts trying to, well, hump Grey Crow's leg. Turns out that was all because of Empath giving her the mental suggestion. When he, stops with the suggestion, Grey Crow promptly shoots him in the head. They go deeper in, and Havoc doesn't necessarily he's a great fit for this team, though Psylocke explains that the Quiet Council disagrees. However, Havoc does kind of say they'd probably disagree with, Grey Crow shooting Empath in the head back there, too. And Psylocke does admit that, yeah, probably, perhaps, maybe, but the Council knows the damage they all carry and that vanquishing demons is messy work. Havoc then goes on, I don't have demons. I'm in the orphanage Scott and I were sent to as kids. Where Mr. Sinister had us separated, and I'm fine. Psylocke is just like, I'm a telepath. Your mind screams at me, just like everyone else. None of us are fine. As they walk through the orphanage, though, Havoc sees an odd image in a piece of glass. And they find the cloning farm. Nanny apologizes to Grey Crow for her behavior earlier. And Grey Crow begins setting explosives to destroy the farm when they find the remnants of the Marauders. Oh, the rest of the Marauders. The Sinister's Marauders, not the Krakoan Marauders. They appear to be zombified. We then get a write-up on Sinister's Marauders. John Grey Crow paid me a visit asking after his former teammates again. I can only call his demeanor stoic desperation, which would have been amusing if not for the high-caliber weapon he assembled and disassembled compulsively as we talked. I'm truly saddened that whatever trauma he's endured compels him to hide his completely natural concern for his comrades. I'll order a temporal cytopsy from Emma to get to the bottom of that, but to the subject at hand. Bringing the Legacy Marauders to Krakoa is not as simple as it seems. At least it's not as simple as Mr. Grey Crow appears, despite his best efforts to hope. Mr. Sinister was resurrecting clones of his mutant assassins back when Krakoa was just a murderous island we didn't know how to explain to our friends. To call his resurrection protocols lax does not adequately sum up how antithetical his procedures were to current Krakoan best practices. All that is to say, the current iteration of the Marauders are clones of clones of clones, most likely suffering from generation loss and genetic corruption. Some, no doubt, intentional. Are these current Marauders the most natural versions of themselves? If not, don't they deserve to be? I won't try to force a decision. Not a priority, I understand. But for now, we should apply some political pressure towards Sinister dismantling his clone farm. Once we know we're dealing with the last of the line, we can assess the Marauders' genetic integrity and discern if the whole lot of them aren't better left for the Five to sort out. I don't want to sound like Kurt, but I'd be excited to see what could be made of these mutants if they were resurrected with a little love. And then we get a list of the 6 members that are not on Krakoa. Basically, who they are, what they can do. Arclight, whose powers are manual tectonic disruption. Riptide, hyperrotation, ubercarotene pentaquill excretion. Harpoon, bioenergetic bioluminescent projectiles. Blockbuster, strong guy. Prism, energy absorption refraction, biotransparency. Scrambler, electrosystemic disruption. So, Grey Crow tries to reason with his former teammates, explaining that, they don't have to protect the orphanage anymore, and he's found them a new place where they can get them all cleaned up. Arclight reaches out, tries to talk to them, pointing to their queen, the just arrived Madeline Pryor. Madeline tells the team that they are all unloved and despised, and those who sent them were well aware of what Madeline would do to them. Havoc tries to talk to her. Psylocke tries to calm him down. Havoc asks her asked Madeline when she came back, and she responds years ago, and no one cared. She then tells the Marauders, or slaves, to take the Hellions. With Havoc and Psylocke going after Prism and Riptide, while ordering the rest to fan out and keep moving. Scrambler scrambles Nanny so that she can't move. Nanny then threatens Scrambler with some pants down spankings. Orphan Maker goes up against Blockbuster. Madeline herself actually kills Riptide as Riptide's standing between Madeline and her lover. Havoc, kind of, hey, you're bleeding. She has a shard of Riptide stuck in her face. Riptide's body being basically made out of crystal. Madeline shushes him and tells him that he will too. Scrambler then goes after Orphan Maker, scrambling him, allowing for Blockbuster to knock Orphan Maker out. All this while Nanny is face down on the floor and unable to see what's going on. Psylocke takes a few shurikens from Riptide, but does manage to get away. Arclight, and with an assist from Harpoon, manages to take out Grey Crow. The only 2 Hellions left not taken are Psylocke and Wildchild. Wildchild figures that as Psylocke is injured, she's too weak to lead. And, Lupine Pack dynamics. He challenges the Alpha for the position of Alpha, slashing her chest as the issue ends. Which now brings us to our one DC book of the week. This is kind of an odd one, and yeah, Joker Harley, Criminal Sanity, Secret Files. So first and foremost, an explanation of Secret Files. For years, DC has produced one-shots, usually relating to specific characters and specific points in time. It'll give you a rundown on who a character is, what they can do. You'll probably, for example, I want to say it was a post. There was one that was post war game post that came out for the Batman family after the event of War Games, like 15 years or so ago. But it went into who's who in the Bat family, and as well as Gotham's underworld and so on and so forth. This, however, is going to be a bit different. As best I can tell, this is not Criminal Sanity does not take place in a reality where there is a Batman or any superheroes. So we get some newspaper clippings. We get a full map of the Joker serial killer's victims, as well as pictures of all 15 of them. Along with points saying, okay, this is where this one was found. Also included are, I think, are where the other serial killer has been striking. There's also a front page from the Gotham Gazette about asking if the Joker is a serial killer or vigilante. Processing report from Arkham Asylum on Victor Zsasz. So it was a wanted poster of Rory Ragman Reagan. We get a look at the corrections offender report on victim number 1, Mick Kelly. Gives his vitals: name, race, sex, birth date, initial receipt date, current facility, current custody, current release date, aliases: Mickey Kelly, Mean Mick, Kelly, Mean Mick, Mickey Boy, Patrick Flanagan, Pat Flanagan, Pat Flan, John Doe, John Mickey. Detainers, none. And a list of his offenses: aggravated assault with weapon known to kill, 5 years. Okay, I don't know what most of these, but yeah, basically, he's got, it's a laundry list. Zsasz explains that the few historical details are known about Victor Zsasz's background. Textbook sociopath, psychopath, and serial murderer commemorates each of his kills with a self-inflicted scar by means of any sharp or bladed weapon. In 1938, Carl Menninger stated self-mutilation was a non-fatal expression of an attenuated death wish. The patient also has a history of intentional self-injurious behavior with significant blood loss requiring life flights to tertiary care facilities. He's a known maligner who has used cutting episodes to access psychiatric and shock trauma devices for secondary gain, namely to effect movement within the classification system to another psychiatric facility with lesser well-staffed security details and means an opportunity to attempt escape or to move closer to an intended victim. He exhibits a virulently obsessive nature and is prone to neurotic or psychogenic excoriation, picking on skin of his arms, shoulders, and chest. Theories regarding motivations of picking behavior are believed to stem from repressed rage towards parental authorities and no toward authority in general. The patient also displays obsessive-compulsive hygiene rituals and trichotillomania, whereby he picks an individual hair follicles to the point of eliminating all traces of personal body hair, including the prominent absence of eyebrows. Zaz is extremely unstable and impulsive, with unpredictable bursts of rage. He kills without a specific victimology pattern regarding age, race, or gender. He has been unsuccessfully evaluated and treated by both Dr. Jonathan Crane and Dr. Hugo Strange. The wanted poster for Ragman explains that he is... The main thing he's wanted for is failure to surrender for service of sentence as ordered by the court. It's a $10,000 reward for information that leads directly to his arrest. He's wanted for multiple counts of aggravated assault, false imprisonment, criminal restraint, fleeing and eluding law enforcement, cybercrime, sabotage, suspicion of arson, suspicions of terrorism, violations of explosives. Should be considered armed natives with violent tendencies. There's also a tab saying there's an anonymous tip for a possible sighting near Knider Avenue. The Gotham Gazette headline about whether or not the Joker is a serial killer or vigilante goes on to say that children in the East End have a terrifying new protector. The Joker, the vicious serial killer who earned his moniker by leaving his victims with smiles created by inserting bent wire coat hangers in their mouths, has claimed his fifth victim. Many Gotham residents can finally rest easy tonight because the GCP has identified a pattern in the Joker's victimology. A source inside the GCPD confirmed the killer is targeting abusive fathers in the East End. All 5 men had been reported to Child Protective Services at least once, and 2 of the victims were under investigation for suspected child abuse at the times of death. The last 4 victims were murdered while their children and wives or girlfriends were asleep in the home, yet the Joker left everyone except the victims unharmed. Is the Joker a serial killer with a mission or a vigilante dedicated to protecting children in the East End? We spoke to residents, and some say yes, the Joker's our Batman. Okay, so I was wrong about there not being a Batman in the criminal Sanity universe. One mother explained, nobody gives a damn about the kids in our neighborhoods, sometimes not even their own fathers. We spoke to a grandmother in Crime Alley who shared a similar view. Batman's not around. We don't know where he's gone or if he's coming back. If it takes a serial killer to scare some sense into men beating on their kids, then so be it. The GCPD declined to comment. We have a brief visit with our killer from 5 years ago, looking at a piece called The Young Martyr, which he says bears an uncanny resemblance to a scene he created, the girl in the bathtub. The girl in the bathtub being Dr. Quinzel's former roommate, Dr. Edie Malone. There are then some various various sketches and paintings, some anatomical, some of instrumentation. Couple of letters concerning Harley Quinn, as well as emails between Jim Gordon and Chief Loeb about Quinzel, Dr. Quinzel, helping with the GCPD. Furthermore, we have a look at a house, presumably Joker's house. Including an art studio, a kill room, a dark room, lab and autopsy room, garage, armory, door to weapon, as well as door to weapon modification room, rooftop greenhouse, outer space on top floor, library, mannequin room, safe room with security cameras, so on and so forth. We also will look at his lab. His tools are a mix of surgical and carpentry tools. And he has a surgical lamp, a lab sink, an antique dental chair. Also a process property report. Several hundred mannequin parts, an articulated wood mannequin head, autopsy table, antique dental chair, portable military field dentist, autopsy saw, cooling board, and hospital purchasing yearbook. Then we've got a psychological profile of unidentified suspect provided by Harley Quinn, MD, forensic psychiatry consultant and criminal investigative analyst for the GCPD. It can be determined within a reasonable degree of forensic certainty that the crimes reviewed are the work product of a lone, organized killer, as evidenced by the following. The murders themselves were elaborate and execution requiring extensive planning. Complex materials were prepared and brought to the scene that were non-essential to the commission of the crimes. Bodies and body parts were transported with great care over multiple locations: abduction, killing, and disposal sites. No murder weapons and no trace evidence were found at any of the sites. The crime scenes were tightly controlled, victims bound, some sedated, and were thoroughly sanitized. The bodies were deliberately arranged post-mortem in positions that had significance to the offender. While I cannot entirely rule out an underlying sexual component to these crimes, these were not primarily motivated by a lust murderer. There were no signs of sexual trauma or medically documented injuries to sex organs, and no seminal fluids were found in evidence. Elements of dismemberment and bondage were seen, but do not appear to be fetishistic in nature. Restraints were mainly used for practical reasons of maintaining victim control and easing transport. Victims were washed post-mortem and were reclothed, not out of respect or remorse, but for sanitation and visual presentation. While there is evidence of physical cruelty, that should not be confused with sadism. Rather than enjoy watching suffering, he would be indifferent to it. In fact, some of the victims may have been unconscious for the duration of their captivity. The degree of ritual involved and the level of criminal competence demonstrated suggests extreme intellect and extensive planning before and after the murders. His mood appeared to be well controlled at all times. There were no hesitation marks evident on any of the victim's wounds, and there were no indications of impulsivity or overkill. The lacerations inflicted were informed and precise, suggesting of some amount of medical knowledge or amateur surgical skill. His level of confidence indicates that he is a well-experienced killer who has been at it for some time. Victimology as of yet reveals no discernible patterns of victim selection. It is unclear if victims have been pre-selected by stalking activity as part of a safety vetting process and his modus operandi, as well as to engage in the thrill of the hunt. Despite the bizarre and grandiose nature of the crimes, he is not psychotic in the strict sense of being unable to perceive reality. This type of ritualistic offender often has a personality structure marked by a strong sense of entitlement and belief that everything in the world is fair game for his use. He would have no emotional attachments and therefore no restraining influences other than protecting his personal safety. The motive of the crimes remains somewhat unclear. The killings do not appear to be primarily motivated by lust, anger, or revenge. The murderers, however, are certainly ego-driven with an intense desire for recognition of his brilliance and craft. The suggested profile is as follows. I believe the suspect to be a single white male in his 20s, at most early 30s, acting alone. He would not be psychotic, but may present as eccentric or odd. He exhibits a psychopathic, narcissistic character style with obsessive tendencies. He pays careful attention to his physical appearance, which may be unconventional. He is a loner-type individual, but finds ease in negotiating interpersonal contacts, which are only used for transactional purpose. He will possess a number of surgical instruments, but is not necessarily employed in the medical field. If the suspect does work, it would be a non-traditional job. He has detailed knowledge of downtown Gotham and likely lives or grew up within its city limits. This is an extremely intelligent, bold, but cautious killer who chooses victims by indeterminate criteria with months of planning, preparation, and seemingly flawless execution. He is confident, experienced, and unburdened by feelings of inadequacy so often seen in other perpetrators of serial murder. He is considered to be unpredictable and extremely dangerous to law enforcement. Ritualistic offenders are often most successful in their criminal acts. Police should be looking for a highly sophisticated offender who blends easily into society and will do whatever it takes to bring his morbidly complex fantasies to fruition. Respectfully submitted, Harley Quinn, MD, forensic psychiatry consultant, criminal investigative analyst, Gotham City Police Department. And there are more sketches and paintings. David Mack's work is excellent as always. There's a coroner's report on one of the victims. Also, it turns out Jim Corrigan's the coroner. I want to say this is the most recent of the victims. Also, evidence that some look at some of the evidence from one of the other bodies. There's also a letter from the office of the fire chief of Gotham City to Garfield Lynn's Firefly. More paintings and sketches. And that is the issue. The main reason I went through this was the profile. Apparently, it was actually written by an actual, by a professional in the field, Edward Kurtz, MD, presumably. Anyways, that's it for now. As always, feel free to like, share, and subscribe. Links to my Facebook, Twitter, Patreon, and PayPal can be found in the description box down below. This is Rock and Roll Spock signing off, saying, live long and rock hard.